You're listening to the PRO Media Network. The next level in entertainment.
You're now rocking with Ring Kings Boxing on the PRO Media Network. What's happening, fight fans? I'm Big Q chiming in on today's boxing show. Big ups to the family members as we will cover several news, notes, and items for the Ring King family. So big ups to you guys. Welcome in to the live stream. And I'd like to bring in the co-host of Ring Kings Boxing World, Eddie Too Mean Johnson. What's going on, Too Mean?
Yo, what's happening?
Everything going good, brother. A lot of boxing stuff to talk about, Too Mean, in this one. Of course, right now, a lot of the fight stuff hadn't exactly lined up just yet, but a lot of talking is going on in the world of boxing right now, man. And a lot of talking. And I think I want to start off, bro, with two really interesting topics of a lot of people doing a lot of talking. We're going to start it off with Teofimo Lopez and, of course, Devin Haney, man. And this is a really interesting situation that's going on between both of these fighters. As you know, they both were on the hot boxing show with Mike Tyson. As I see what Mike was trying to do to me, he was trying to get these fighters together in the ring to fight. Obviously, Teofimo has multiple belts there, and Devin Haney has his belt. And unification, man, if you arguing about who is the undisputed champion, and according to what Teofimo and his father are saying, BC President Suleiman was saying that Teofimo is the undisputed champion, and Devin Haney disagrees with that summation, even though he does have a belt. Well, only one way this is get cleared up if both of these vibrant fighters meet in the fight. So let's go over this article. We'll start this one. As Teofimo says, he's likely facing Haney next. Now, this is a bit of a good news. It's delivered by BoxingNews24.com. And after I get through this article, I'm going to have Too Mean to chime in and tell me what he think about what's really happening is. Of course, we talked about the Mike Tyson hot boxing show, where Teofimo's dad said that Devin Haney will likely be the next fighter for them in April. Now, according to what Teofimo Sr. is saying, he said it doesn't look like the fight with IBF mandatory fighter George Kambosos Jr. is going to happen in April as they plan, as they won't be able to travel to Australia to make that bout happen. Bob Arum has really been pushing this because he wants to get that gate over there with Australia, because Kambosos is a very popular fighter. So, you know, you can see where that old bastard's head at. But the people really would love to see Teofimo Lopez and Devin Haney go for unification, man. You know, it's just me. But if the fight doesn't happen with Kambosos, as they're saying, Teofimo and his father that they will take the matchup against WBC lightweight champion Devin Haney, who's 25-0 with 15 KOs. And Teofimo holds the IBF, the WBA, the WBC franchise, and the WBO lightweight titles. He insists that he's the undisputed champion at 135 and has been told by WBC President Suleiman that that is indeed the case. But Haney said he still thinks that Lopez doesn't have the real WBC belt, which he is in possession of. So if the two fighters do fight in April, the winner will have all 4 titles, and there will no longer be any argument about who is undisputed. So during that episode, a lot of back and forth banter going on between those fighters, man. And it was just really, you know, a lot of disrespect was thrown around between the two, a lot of shit talking by both fighters. But this is too much talking and back and forth for two fighters that it's looking like. I still say this needs to happen. This is a unification bout, Too Mean, to pretty much for one fighter to lock up the lightweight title, to lock up the white. You have an undisputed lightweight champion, and Teofimo, I have to applaud him for beating Lomachenko and taking his belts. And and this is kind of making him a bit classist with me, kind of classless. They're saying that Devin Haney need to get his weight up and fight his leftovers to prove that he get that. That's disrespectful, man. Come on, because how would you have felt when Lomachenko was throwing that type of shit at you and disrespecting you and not even looking at you and not considering you a real threat? The last time I checked, he was real pissed off about that. So I wouldn't say for you to treat the next fighter down like that. And then, of course, another thing which I don't like about Teofimo is the constant bullshit, the constant lies that people are busting them up in. Like you can go and check out Dante Boxing World. He did a fantastic, and big shout out to Dante Boxing World. He did an absolutely fantastic job chronologically placing together interviews from Teofimo Lopez and his dad, and it appears like they're actually dodging Devin Haney, ducking him if they could. So I mean, the reality is, if they can't make the fight and look like it won't happen with the guy Kambosos Jr. From Australia, they need to do the mandatory fight with Devin Haney. If he's a lightweight, or if he's a person, meaning that he's a person that's not very good, then Teofimo, you'll have an easy fight. If that's the case, if he's not a very good fighter and that he can't play with you, he can't fight you, he's not on your level, then it should be an easier fight for you to beat him. So without all the talk, without all the nonsense, let's make the fight happen. To me, you've been following this stuff. What do you think about what's going on between these two fighters?
Yeah, Teofimo, he trying to talk his way out of it. You know what I'm saying? He keep making people think that he really wants to fight, but he don't want to fight. He's dodging Devin Haney. He don't want his reign of being champion to be short like that. So he's gonna try to ride it out for as long as he can, because he know when he get in the ring with Devin Haney, he gonna get his ass whooped, and it's gonna be the end of his championship reign, man. So that's what I think he's doing. Definitely.
Yeah. It's like I said, man. Watching how he's been acting since he won those belts from Lomachenko, I really had a higher opinion than Teofimo than what I've been witnessing as a unified champion. You know what I'm saying? Totally classless in many cases. A lot of the lying back and forth banter between him and his father, about who they're gonna fight. And Devin Haney is a champion. I don't care what Suleiman. They keep convoluting, and you know what? That's not on Haney or on Teofimo. That's on these garbage, backwards ass boxing organizations who keep creating all these phantom titles. So much so that even the fighters are confused about what these titles mean. I mean, it's absolute garbage, man. The way these people keep screwing things up, creating all of these belts, the franchise belts, and all this kind of fanciful nonsense. It's just a bunch of bullshit, man. And even the fighters are confused about what belts mean what. And this is a clear-cut case of it. What Teofimo says, well, am I franchise? I'm totally the unified man? Yes, you are. So what belt does Devin? So his belt doesn't count? I mean, it's just foolish. I blame one of the worst boxing organization in the business, ran by Suleiman, who's a total buffoon, man. Totally untrustworthy, totally corrupt, totally incompetent. But a lot of these boxing organizations are complete jokes, and Suleiman's organization is the absolute worst. I just got to keep it real. But there's only one way this fight happens. These guys got to put all this talking aside, and they have to make the fight. Now remember that Teofimo is ran by Bob Arum, who Dana White called a fucking scumbag, and it quote and end quote. And I agree with him. I don't like Bob Arum either. I think Bob Arum is full of shit. I think he's an old world, a guy that needs to move out of the way and make way for fresh young blood and concepts, and understand that it's not always about you making max profit by getting the gate. You're not going to get a lot of the gate nowadays with the C19 stuff, and you got to get past that. There are other ways to generate revenue. He's accustomed to making a certain amount of money for these fights, and it's sad because this guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and I'm really tired of Bob Arum because he's pushing that Teofimo fight Kambosos in Australia so he can get the max gate there. That's why he's moving away from Haney, and the fact that they got to know that Devin Haney's a dangerous opponent for Teofimo Lopez, who just got these belts off of Lomachenko. So how ironic would it be if he did fight Devin Haney, Haney beats him and take these belts? Boy, that'll be quick, fast, in a hurry. So I think a lot of time the handlers try to move these guys around out of the way of facing dangerous fighters. So could Devin Haney talk his way into a fight like Tyson Fury did with a witless Deontay Wilder? When he should have never gave him that fight. So quickly, if Devin Haney and Teofimo Lopez finally fight in April, who wins?
Oh, Devin Haney gives him a boxing lesson. He wins by unanimous decision.
How many rounds you talking, Eddie? You saying it would be a clinic with Devin Haney over Teofimo? Is he that much greater than Teofimo?
Man, Devin Haney outboxed him easily, man. You know what I'm saying? That's all Devin Haney knows is boxing, man. You know what I'm saying? He been in it, like I said, he been doing that shit since he was a little boy, man. And you know what I'm saying? He goes, anybody they put him in the ring with, he beats the hell out of. Sparring and fight. Real fights, he just beat the hell out of him. He's, you know what I'm saying? He's all across the board. He got everything it takes. Like I say, there's nobody. I don't see nobody beating him no time soon. Maybe when he get old. You know what I'm saying? But right now, ain't nobody beating him. I think he's the best in the lightweight division. And as far as undisputed, you're not undisputed until nobody in your division have the belts but you. I don't care about the franchise or the gold belt, this and that. I like you don't have all the belts. You ain't undisputed, man.
Well, that definitely is the case. To me, like I said, Teofimo does have the IBF, the WBA, and the WBC franchise belt. And he also has the WBA lightweight, the WBO. So it's the IBF, WBA, WBC franchise, and the WBO lightweight title. And of course, Devin, of course, he has the WBC lightweight belt. So the lightweight champion belt. So it's crazy, man. I don't understand how the WBC franchise belt outranks the WBC lightweight champion. I don't understand that. And that's purposely done so they can be able to create gray area where they can manipulate fights, in my opinion. Very sinister and disagreeable way of how to conduct boxing business. But that's the WBC for you. Moving on to the next article, Ryan Garcia's father says Pacquiao deal is very close, then provides details. It's coming from BoxingScene.com. And of course, we're going to talk about this. Ryan Garcia was going back and forth with another very powerful and young gun who just recently, not too long ago, smashed Leo Santa Cruz, who's a well-respected fighter. And I beckon that if you put Ryan Garcia up against Leo Santa Cruz, that he would have difficulty beating Santa Cruz, who's a much polished fighter than he is. But Gervonta Tank Davis smashed this guy. And of course, Ryan Garcia, then they were going back and forth. Garcia said that Tank Davis is scared. I like Ryan Garcia. He's a little too overconfident, bro. You believe in you smoking your own dope. You need to chill out, humble out, because you're taking on fighters that's in the elite status and you're thinking you're elite and you've been handled for a long time. So those guys trying to keep your ass out of trouble, but your confidence won't let you stay out of trouble. But of course, he was able to manipulate up out of the Gervonta Tank Davis situation, and now is aimed at getting a deal with Manny Pacquiao, who's also playing some chess with his belt, looking for 2 fights. He was looking at Conor McGregor. McGregor got his ass smashed on recently, and that fight is no longer doable according to reports. Nobody wants to see you fight a recently demoralized, knocked out, slept ass Conor McGregor. And now they're looking at Ryan Garcia, who has a lot of popular following. That's what it's all about, the following. But according to the report, according to what the elder Garcia is saying, Pacquiao, who's the WBA welterweight title champion, will not be at stake. That championship belt will not be at stake for this contest. So it's strictly an exhibition bout. What's the purpose of that? What's the purpose of this exhibition bout with Pacquiao? But there's a 20-year gap there. Now, Pacquiao, 42, has been out of the ring since 2019 when he captured the WBA welterweight strap with a 12-round split over Keith Thurman. And of course, earlier this month, What I mean is Garcia picked up his biggest victory of his pro career when he knocked out 2012 Olympic gold medal Luke Campbell in the 9th round to capture that WBC interim title. Now, Garcia is hoping that he can find out this week if a deal will be reached between the two sides, and he's looking forward to it. So Garcia's father says that the contest may potentially end up being a 10-round exhibition, like a catch weight of 143. He says, I would like a fight at 143. I love that fight to happen in April or May. This one is possibly going to be in Texas. We're not sure that, saying Henry Garcia. And he doubts Pacquiao world title will be up for grabs no matter what happens. So with all that being said, Ryan Garcia says that Tank is scared, which is ridiculous, then moves away from fighting a really good fighter, a champion like Tank Davis, to go and fight Manny Pacquiao in a 10th round exhibition. To me, make this make sense to me.
That shit don't make no sense. It can't make no sense out of that. But Ryan Garcia, he the one's taking the scare route. You know what I'm saying? He know damn well Tank Davis is not scared of him, and he gonna get his ass whooped. He gonna get knocked out because his last fight when he was getting tagged, man, his ass cover up. Like he really can't take no punch like that. You know what I'm saying? When he did get hit on the chin, he got dropped. He got back up. I give him his props for getting up and winning.
Right away.
Yeah, but like he tried to ride that win like that was you know what I'm saying? Like that was a great win. I mean, it was a good win, but it wasn't no great win. They just try to ride the little shit, the little stuff that they doing. They try to ride that shit out without trying to take no real risk of fighting the real greats in the division. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I said, I just don't respect a lot of shit that a lot of these fighters are doing, man. They just talking shit, no action, man. Action speaks louder than words, man. You can't talk your way into greatness. You got to fight your way into greatness, man. That shit is, like I said, it don't make sense to me. These motherfuckers just, like I said, they not fighting the fights that everybody wants to see. I don't know. They think they Mayweather, so I don't know what the fuck going on, man. Tell you the truth, this shit don't make no sense at all, man.
There's no belts up for stake. You have a WBA title. You're a welterweight champion. Why aren't you fighting guys for? I don't understand why Pacquiao's not finding a way to make a fight happen with either Crawford or Errol Spence. I don't get that. Why isn't the unification fight between Pacquiao or Crawford? How is that? How is a 10-round exhibition between Ryan Garcia and Manny Pacquiao more sellable than a welterweight unification fight between either Crawford or Errol Spence? It just absolutely flies in the face of logic. Not to mention that Garcia should be fighting Gervonta Tank Davis. That should be the fight that's made. But you would break away from that to go fight Garcia in an exhibition. Makes absolutely no sense. And I've been saying it, like we've been saying here on Ring King Boxing, the realest show talking boxing is Ring King's Boxing World. There's no realest show covering the sport like we do. We talk about the corruption. We talk about all that stuff. Very few of these people even covering it like that. And that's what give us an edge. But the reality is a lot of these fighters are running scared, man. And a lot of these fighters are talking themselves because there is no way Ryan Garcia beats a Gervonta Tank Davis. We both know that. I like Garcia a lot. I've on the record for saying I like the kid. He's a good young fighter, but he's missing a lot. He has speed, but he's fought guys that doesn't build his resume. He fought and beat Luke Campbell, who, is a good fighter, but he's, like you said, he's not a great fighter. But he's a stepping stone fight to greater fights. Now, if you can beat Tank Davis like you beat Luke Campbell, that would launch you into that stratosphere where you think you belong. But talking smack and calling him scared and moving and going fight an exhibition fight, it makes absolutely no sense to me to do that. But the Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia fight is more sellable. Tank Davis would fight Garcia, work out the money, make the fight happen. But the reality is this as well. As good as Garcia is, he's not ready for an elite level fighter like Gervonta Davis. He's not. That's what it's coming down to. All right, let's move on to the next one. Adrien Broner, Too Mean pops up on us. He has found a a fighter to match up with him for February the 20th. He'll face Giovanni Santiago. And we talked about possible people that Adrien Broner, who's been laid off from boxing for almost, 2 years, that he'll ultimately get an opportunity to come back, but it will have to be a soft opponent. And he's found a really soft and mushy opponent in Giovanni Santiago. Let's go over this article right here and we'll talk about it. As his new opponent, Giovanni Santiago, headline spot on the Showtime's February 20th boxing event. Broner, who's 33-4-1 with 24 knockouts, has lost over 40 pounds during camp. He's not looking particularly youthful at 31. This will be his first fight for the former 4-division world champion in 2 years since Pacquiao beat him in January of 2019. It's possible to know that we're going to get Broner in terms of his performance. You don't know. He says he's taking training seriously, and I think he is. And of course, with that being said, Eddie, a fighter by the name of Pedro Campe, who pulled out due to C19 just a couple of weeks ago, and Broner's management found a replacement in the unbeaten 31-year-old Puerto Rican fighter Santiago, who's 14-0-1 with 10 knockouts. So not really a noticeable fighting record, but in the 14 years of Santiago's fighting, his most notable foe was DeMarcus Corley, who he defeated by a close 10-round unanimous decision in 2017. But Corley was 43 years old at the time and still came close to beating Santiago. So with that being said, can anybody out there say cab driver? Because that's what the hell this guy is. And that's what Adrien Broner needs. He needs a guy that can boost his confidence, because if you go back over his last several fights, he lost that unanimous decision, 12-round decision, lost to Pacquiao. Remember, he lost the fight against Jesse Vargas. He also had that loss against Mikey Garcia. And then remember that controversial fight against Adrian Granados. And of course, his last knockout was against Ashley Teofimo with that 9th-round knockout. So I mean, it's been a while since Adrien Broner has actually won some fights, won a fight period, but he's been on the backslide, the downslide, with several losses in a row. To me, what do you think about this? Broner faces off against a cab driver by the name of Giovanni Santiago.
I never heard of the guy before, and it depends on what Broner shows up, man. You know what I'm saying? If Broner, I hope he gets his stuff together. You know what I'm saying? Because I like Broner, but hope ain't gonna do it. You know what I'm saying? He gotta. You know what I'm saying? He can't be like his words is not solid anymore, because he talked all that shit before, and he was getting his ass whooped, man. Saying that he was ready, he back focused again and all this, and then the next thing you know, he get in there and he you know what I'm saying, he wind up losing. You know what I'm saying? He don't back up the words he be, you know what I'm saying, that he be saying. So I'm waiting to see how he gonna look with this fight. You know what I'm saying? I don't know who this guy is, but you know what I'm saying, I like to say, I just don't know what to say about him. I got to see this fight and see how he's looking in this fight to determine whether he's, you know what I'm saying, he back focused like he needs to be. So I can't go by his words right now. He's looking good in training and everything, dropping the weight. He's looking good. You know what I'm saying, he's looking the part. But let me see if he's gonna really be the part though. Well, he should be the part. Like you said, his fight should be a fight he can go through easily. It should be an easy fight for him, but like I say, we'll see. I can't go by his words right now.
No, I mean, and you're right, Eddie, because recent history with Adrien Broner in his last several fights, he said the same thing. I remember he was on ESPN telling Stephen A. Smith that he was ready to go, and Stephen A. Smith basically told him, asked him the question, will you let your hands go? Because a lot of people believe that you're a shot fighter, and I remember we've constantly said on here that he exhibits a shot fighter way. He covers up. He doesn't let his hands glow. He's a jalopy. I call him a jalopy. Basically, you got to turn him on and let him run for about 30 minutes before he starts actually doing something. You can't just jump up in there and start driving right away. You'll conk out. So I mean, he has extremely late starts in fights before he actually started getting busy, to the point where the fight is almost out of his hands and he has to knock the guy out to have a serious chance. And I've seen that happen several times. Another key flaw in the design of Adrien Broner is that at this stage of his career, he's taken an extreme amount of abuse over the last 4 fights that he's had. I mean, guys have really put pain on Adrien Broner and really have hurt him pretty bad. So with that being said, I'm hoping the best for Adrien Broner as well, but maybe the best might not be in the ring. We know why Adrien Broner's fighting. He's obviously fighting because he needs the money. So he's hurting right now. So maybe that will that hunger angle will come back. Maybe that's what he needed to bottom out, fall on his ass, and fight for money for him to get that dog, that animalistic nature back. So I'm hoping that that's the Adrien Broner that we see moving forward. But in my opinion, I think he handles Giovanni Santiago. This guy is a very soft fighter, and this is a confidence-building fight for Broner, who hasn't won a fight in several matchups. I mean, his last knockout was some time ago, and he needs to know how it feels again to get a win in the ring. And Giovanni Santiago on February the 20th will grant Adrien Broner on Showtime that honor. Let's move to the next topic. Errol Spence reacts to Bob Arum and Crawford taking shots at him. Now, this is an article that was coming out saying that Bob Arum and his fighter Terence Crawford have it on social media on Thursday and reacting to comments from both of them throw towards Errol Spence Jr. about him blocking up the fight between the two. Now, Arum is putting the blame on Spence for the fight with Crawford, who's 37-0 with 28 knockouts, not happening. He says not the fault of PBC or Spence's advisor, El Heyman, for the bout with Terence Crawford not happening. Now, the IBF WBC welterweight champion Spence, who's 27-0 with 21 knockouts, would like to fight the WBO champ Crawford, but the money isn't there for them to fight right now. A, it's not a big enough fight to generate huge revenue, and B, staging the Spence versus Crawford fight during the pandemic will result in less money at the gate. Now, Terence is 33. He's proud about having captured 3 division world titles, but his accomplishments don't impress Spence because he hasn't won the titles against no-name fighters. Now, Crawford saying, I've been champion since March the 1st of 2014. 7 straight years is coming up. 3 different weight classes. If I was to retire right now, Hall of Fame would be the next accomplishment. Sorry, I can't say the same for, and you know who he's talking about. Now, Spence was quoted as saying, all those accomplishments with names people won't remember. I want to fight the best though, because Lord knows I'll use one of y'all fave fighter as a tune-up. And of course, what Bob Arum was saying was, I talked to El Heyman. He's amenable to the fight. Spence is the obstacle. Spence throws out numbers and percentages. We believe Crawford will beat him. Unfortunately, Spence believes the same. Don't blame Heyman, blame Spence. And of course, Spence said in reply to Bob Arum, lying as Bob strikes again. So with that being said, between the two, another talking back of 2 fighters that's in their prime right now, especially Terence Crawford at 33, who's been fighting subpar fighters, in my opinion, from Top Rank, which I've been saying for a long time he should have never went over there. If we would have been at PBC, we would have gotten this fight. But it's always Arum talking about, and people talking about the money's not there for a mandatory, but for a unification bout between 2 welterweight champions. Spence has a couple of belts, Crawford has a belt, and Pacquiao has the other belt. So if these guys can make a fight for unification, this would be a nice fight. But they keep throwing the gate up. The people will pay to see Spence and Crawford fight for unification in welterweight division. To me, what do you think about the comments made by Crawford, Arum, and Spence in pertaining to making this fight work?
Yeah, like I say, man, you know what I'm saying? It's all that talk, man. I'm tired of hearing the talk, man. I want to see they can make the fight happen. Like you said, the fight will sell, even if it's on pay-per-view. They're gonna make a lot of money off it. It's millions of boxing fans across the world, and millions of people want to see the fight. So they have that on pay-per-view. The fight is gonna make some money. The money's there, man. So that's shit they talking. I'm like, man, that shit don't make sense to me. That shit they talking. But the fight, like I said, the money's there, man. All they gotta do is make the fight happen, and the people gonna buy it. You know, they don't really need no gate for that one. I mean, they can have a gate, a small gate, because of the restrictions of the COVID-19. But the pay-per-view sales going, you know what I'm saying, that's going to make up for it. You know what I'm saying, to where they, you know, so they make a nice little bit of money, man. So
and that's what I'm talking about, because they keep talking about the gate at the actual event, picking up the gate that way. But that's not, the C19 is not going away anytime soon. So with that being said, people are going to have to adjust their aspirations. But the bottom line is, you know, these are the fights that need to be making. We just talked about 3 really good fights that I would love to see this year if we can make them. We talk about Teofimo and Devin Haney. We'll love to see that. We'll pay for that. Ryan Garcia against Gervonta Tank Davis. We'll pay for that. And also, we talking about a matchup between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. We'll pay for all 3 of those fights. Those are unification fights of a high order, really good boxing. And a lot of people will pay attention to it, and those fights will make a lot of money. Now let's move to the final topic of Ring King Boxing, which is a fight that's estimated to make over $200 million between these two people. And according to reports, that the fight is woefully close to being actually agreed upon. Well, it's been agreed upon in principle, but signed coming up soon. And let's get into it. And we're talking Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, which they've estimates that these guys can make, the fight can generate $200 million and then more in the second fight. The largest or biggest grossing heavyweight fight ever, and could possibly be the greatest and largest grossing fight in history of boxing, period, between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. So one could see why an entire boxing apparatus will go about moving Wilder out the way, because he's standing in the way of a $200 million downpour for a lot of these greedy boxing people. So let's get into this article. How close is the fight between Joshua and Tyson Fury? Now, Eddie Hearn says that he sent out his first draft of the contract of the Joshua versus Fury mega fight to top ranks promoter Bob Arum and Frank Warren to look over, and he's targeting June for the match to take place. Now, Hearn states that he hopes to have the contract signed within 2 weeks. Then they can start looking at the location of the fight. Now, the Middle East is the likely destination for Joshua and the Fury fight, like I said, because less restrictions in terms of the C19. Both fighters are expected to make upwards to $60 million per fight between the two, and it's a $200 million fight. Now, Fury and Joshua fight is still on tap to be the undisputed heavyweight championship. Joshua's WBO mandatory, which is Alexander Usyk, is now expected to step aside. He was paid to step aside, accept step aside money, and face Joe Joyce for the interim WBO heavyweight title, which is another fantastic fight. But Hearn, Joshua, and Fury want all 4 titles to be on the line for the first fight in June. Now, Joshua Fury fighter will get a great photo out with all the straps over the lucky guy's shoulder. Now, Hearn is pretty excited about the thought of Joshua being the one that has all of the belts if he defeats Fury. Now, he says the first draft of the contract is going to Arum. This is Hearn's talking, which is obviously a good thing. The contract reflects the positive nature of the discussions we had so far around this fight. So, that's what Hearn says. We now await their comments before we all move to agreeing to the location. We hope to have something signed within the next 2 weeks. Now, we'll be monitoring this situation to see how exactly it is. But a $200 million fight, Eddie, it's being said that each one of these fights can make $60 million per fight between the two, but over $200 million downfall is expected between the unification of the heavyweight crowns. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, that's what they was looking at. That's why they was covering up for Tyson Fury's cheating. They were like, it's money, man. You know what I'm saying? They ain't trying to fuck that money up. They trying to get that back. So they gonna do whatever it takes to get it. You know what I'm saying? That's why they fucked over Wilder so bad. They was like, man, fuck that. All that shit that he obviously was doing as far as cheating and shit. They swept that shit under the rug, man. Like, nah, you ain't gonna fuck this money up. That's what I think about that. That's all politics of boxing, man. All about that dollar and shit. You don't give a fuck about Wilder's, you know what I'm saying, getting cheated and all that stuff, man. I seem like that was a setup from the beginning, man.
You have people that is that powerful enough to be able to construct and move things around, and he's talking about he was doped and all that. He has no evidence. He's talking about suing them, but he's still there. He's going to be forced to take lesser fights. There's already reports out there about him fighting guys like Andy Ruiz or Carlos Takam, and those are the next fighters. And he's always talking about smashing and Dillian White's face next and all this kind of foolishness. So he's already resolved to the fight of fighting lesser people. And let me tell you something. Now that he did, it appears like they're going to move past him, because let me tell you something. If people they're going to make $200 million in this matchup, and not just one fight. These are multiple fights that should tie up the heavyweight belts for the next 2.5 years between Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. Bottom line. And that's why you see some of these boxing organizations that were pushing, because they get a large sum of the proceeds from this mega fight, and they want this to happen. So Deontay Wilder had an opportunity to negotiate with Anthony Joshua. They bullshitted around. He kept talking about he was A side and Joshua was B side. Same establishment smashed his ass, moved him aside. And let me tell you something, he'll never get an opportunity to fight for these crowns, because he's at the back of in his career. He'll start facing fighters that are pretty tough fighters that can fight. And a lot of these guys he can beat off his knockout power, but we know he's limited as a boxer. If he gets in the ring and fights some of these other fighters that's coming up, he could have some issues. So Deontay Wilder is probably at the back end of his career, but $200 million is enough to move Deontay Wilder out, enough to get decisions ruled up against him. This is a juggernaut, and they want the money. So with that being said, we're going to end on that. I'd like to thank all you guys for chiming in on this edition of Ring Kings Boxing. As always, if you aren't subscribed, join the realest show talking about boxing news. Join us and support the platform. Join us. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the like button. Hit the notification bell for other reports as well, all the boxing intel that we drop on a weekly basis. Join the Ring King Boxing family. And share the links on your social media feed, as well as we continue to cover all the latest news in the fight world. I'm Big Q chiming in with my co-host Eddie Too Mean Johnson. Y'all be good. Peace, and we out.
Peace.
You're now listening to the Ring Kings Boxing on the PRO Media Network.